I am honored and privileged to introduce our commencement speaker for this evening, Chris Malachowsky. It is always a pleasure to welcome Chris back to the University of Florida. Chris Malachowsky is one of our most accomplished alumni and one of our most strategic benefactors. We honor his name on our spectacular Malachowsky Hall. He has helped shape the course of critical technology, and he has helped shape the ascendant trajectory of this university. His journey started at UF on a path he had to forge. Chris's dad was a doctor, and Chris expected himself. He expected to follow in his father's footsteps. But he loved creative tinkering and carpentry. He majored in electrical engineering with us, even as he still believed he would go to medical school. However, the day he took the medical school entrance exam, he decided that medicine was just not his calling. When he delivered the news home, his mother responded, "Good, you never read directions anyway." He graduated from UF in 1980 with high honors, worked in engineering roles at Hewlett-Packard and Sun Microsystems, and in 1993 co-founded a startup focused on gaming and visual computing. It's called NVIDIA. You may have heard of it. Chris helped develop NVIDIA's key product, the GPU graphics processing unit, the fundamental building block for high-performance computing and AI. NVIDIA went on to become the world's most valuable company and the prime mover of artificial intelligence. Even as he helped shape the global course of technology, Chris turned his attention back to his alma mater, and UF was ready, thanks to our CIO, who, with great inspiration, decided to build a megawatt data center in 2012 just in case something interesting and powerful came along. And it did, in the form of Chris Malachowsky. Chris, in 2020, gave UF what was then the most powerful AI supercomputer owned by any university in the world. Let's stop for a moment. Chris said he wanted to help the entire university, not just his college. And Provost Glover responded that UF would use the supercomputer in a completely new direction. We would make AI education available to all students and give all faculty access to AI research capabilities. Today, with its newest NVIDIA AI supercomputer installed in 2025, with AI across the curriculum a reality, and with UF research funding for AI enabling projects at approximately $800 million per year, UF is now the nationally recognized leader for artificial intelligence in higher education. Malachowsky Hall is the hub, bringing multiple colleges together, thousands of students to leverage AI for the greater good. Chris, a master of engineering and technology, envisions a future with humanity at the center of an AI-enriched world. This is a vision worth the effort to engage. Tonight, you'll have a chance to engage it as we welcome Chris to the podium. Join me in welcoming Chris Malachowsky.
Well, hello. Thank you for that kind introduction. President Landry, members of the Board of Trustees, academic leaders, faculty, and staff, thank you for the privilege of letting me speak here today. And to the class of 2026 and their families, congratulations. It's especially meaningful for me to be standing here because this campus changed my life. I left here with more than a degree. When combined with my upbringing, I left with the ingredients for a life of meaning, impact, and substance. It was also here that I met my wife, Melody, of almost 45 years, a girl raised here in Gainesville, my best friend, an extraordinary partner, mother, and grandmother. Meeting her here turned out to be the single best outcome of my time at UF. But thank you, honey. Now, let me get to my story. When I graduated, I actually didn't stand out in any obvious way. I wasn't exceptional compared to any of my peers. But what I came to understand is I had something going for me that mattered even more than that being exceptional. I cared, and I cared a lot. And that mattered, because I cared enough to do things well, really well. I cared enough to keep learning and to continue investing in myself. I cared enough to make commitments and then do whatever it took to achieve them. I cared enough to work well with others and to care about their success too. Over time, this mattered way more than looking exceptional at the starting line. But caring alone wasn't enough. You also need momentum. And the momentum I'm referring to is what builds when you get started, even when you're not ready, and you just keep going. My career began at Hewlett Packard. I accepted a job in my parents' kitchen in New Jersey, of which when they asked me what I was going to do, I didn't even remember. I was so excited. But when I look back on that first job, there was two really relevant things about it, not the obvious. The first one was it got me started. I was launched. The second was that it taught me a pattern of behavior that I took through the rest of my career. That of working hard, really hard to learn all that mattered for my role, and that of doing whatever it took to not just succeed, but to excel at all my assignments. That's how momentum builds. Before NVIDIA, I worked at HP and another company, Sun Microsystems. I worked on industrial mini computers and then moved on to designing some of the most complex semiconductor chips of their time. Those steps weren't planned. They weren't linear, but that's actually the point. If you're worried about getting the perfect first job, let me offer you some relief. You don't need the perfect first step. You just need to take the first step. Momentum comes from movement, not perfection. And once you start, how much you care will determine how far that momentum will carry you. While at Sun, my momentum caused me to meet two people who ended up changing my life, Curtis Preem and Jensen Huang. Eventually, the three of us started NVIDIA. Now that sounds like a nice, clean, story, nice, we go from UF to HP to Sun to NVIDIA. But there was nothing straight line about it. There was nothing obvious or easy. There were failures, wrong turns, and plenty of uncertainty. And that's not the exception. That's the process. So you shouldn't expect your life to unfold in a straight line. It won't. That's not failure. That's called growth. When you can't see the whole path, don't freeze. Take the first step. Take the next step. Learn from it. Build from it. That's momentum. Because momentum has a way of revealing opportunities that standing still never will. Our early days at NVIDIA were far from glamorous. Some of our initial ideas were sketched out over pancakes at a Denny's. In fact, our first product was an abject failure. Yet we didn't concede. We learned, we evolved, and we kept going. Years later, when NVIDIA crossed $1 trillion market cap, some journalists ran up to me on campus and asked me, was I ecstatic? And my response was, absolutely. I feel like the overnight success, it only took 30 years in the making. And that line often gets a laugh, but it's also true. People see the milestones and miss the decades. They see the successful company or the stock price and miss the years of preparation. They see the outcome and miss the persistence, the setbacks, the hard works, the learning, the risk, and the investments in caring that made it all possible. So this is, NVIDIA is where caring and momentum took me. I'm anxious to see where your efforts take you. Now let me turn to something I think a lot of you have on your minds, and that's AI. There's a lot of noise around it. Big claims, big concerns, and lots of headlines. But it's important to understand what's actually happening. AI is not just a tool or an app, a chatbot. It's a new kind of computing capability, one that can learn, reason, and do real work. I have spent much of the last year traveling around the country, literally talking up the story of what happened here at the University of Florida. And I am pitching it as a national model, what higher ed should do in every state. And it's being really well received. UF didn't sit back and wait for the AI era to arrive. UF leaned in. It built infrastructure, it built literacy, it built culture. It treated AI not as a niche topic for a few specialists, but as something that would touch every discipline and every aspect of our communities. That matters, and it should matter to you. It means that as graduates, you're not entering this new era as bystanders. You're entering it with a real head start and with a chance to lead. You've been educated at a university that understood early that AI is more than a topic for computer science, that it touches practically all areas of our economy, our society, and our government. That's why I'm so optimistic about this class. You're not walking into the AI era empty-handed. You're walking in better prepared than most of your peers. And I can tell you from traveling around the country, it's true. My advice is simple though. Don't think of AI, think of AI as an amplifier and an augmenter of your own abilities. Think of it as a digital assistant or a colleague that, if used wisely, can extend what you're capable of doing. It can help you learn faster, be more productive, and solve problems that would previously have been out of reach. And like every major technology shift prior, it'll change how work gets done. And I understand that change can be unsettling. But here's the important part. AI does not replace your judgment. It doesn't replace your values, and it doesn't replace your taste. Your critical thinking, your judgment, and your creativity matter. Your empathy and your ethics matter. In fact, these days, I'd argue that these qualities are more important than ever. Yes, tasks will be automated. That's not new. But most meaningful jobs are not a collection of tasks. They're most likely, their values derive from some combination of the interpretation, the assessment, and the judgment that's layered on top of those tasks. So the right question is not, how do I compete with AI? The right question is, how do I work with it so I can be more effective, more capable, and more useful? Learn how to use it. Learn when to trust it and when to question it. Use it to extend your abilities, not replace your thinking. If you do that, AI won't diminish you. AI will extend you. But beyond this, I hope you use the AI literacy you have helped you obtain to provide that benefit of that literacy to others, to care enough to explain, teach, and share what you know about AI with them. Because the future we should want is not one where a few people master powerful new tools and everybody else falls behind. The future we should want is one where more people are empowered, more communities participate, and more human potential gets unlocked. That, to me, is what caring looks like in the age of AI. Because in this next era, caring is just not about your own success. It should also be about helping others keep up. So graduates, here's my charge I want to leave you with. Care deeply and start moving. Care enough to keep learning as you go. Care enough to do the job in front of you and do it well. Care enough to build momentum, even when the path isn't clear. Care enough not to delegate your judgment, and care enough to bring others along. If you do that, you don't need your whole life figured out today. You don't need certainty. You need curiosity, discipline, and the willingness to keep going. If there's anyone here wondering whether ordinary beginnings can lead to extraordinary places, let me offer myself as evidence. A Gator from the class of 1980. No master plan, no straight line. Just a person who cared long enough to be ready when the moment came. And that can happen for you too. So go forward with confidence, gratitude, and curiosity. Go forward to build, to learn, and to contribute. Above all, get going and go forward with care. Class of 2026, your families are proud of you. Your university is proud of you. And from one Gator to another, I'm proud of you. Congratulations and go Gators!